Democratic darling Alexandria Ocasio Cortez taken to task, getting fact-checked for gaffes like these.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine.
I think what I meant is like the settlements. I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue. Unemployment is low because everyone has two jobs. Capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world.
Medicare for all is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now.
Really? Well, the Washington Post revealed that Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's gaffes are not just embarrassing, they're actually wrong. The New York Socialist firing back, claiming, yes, sexism.
That's right. Social media stars and Trump supporters Diamond and Silk join us now to react. Welcome to you both, ladies. Thanks for being here. So, a socialist from the Bronx says a bunch of crazy stuff that she clearly doesn't know enough about. The Washington Post fact checks her. They always do that to conservatives. They finally do it once to a socialist. They find at least 5 claims to be false. She says, you can't say that about me. That's sexist. What do you make of that?
Well, see, that's what they do. And this is what Democrats do. First, they play the race card. And when that don't work, now they play the sexist card. That's what Hillary Clinton did when she said, women didn't want to vote for her. But here's the deal. This young lady, you know, I wonder if she's smarter than a 5th grader. I wish she would debate a 5th grader, and let's see how smart she is.
That's another issue you took, another area that in your op-ed you pointed out was her ideas about Israel. I want to share with the audience some of her thoughts and then come back to you.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
All right, so she's kind of regurgitating things that she might have heard on a college campus. I mean, she's 26 years old, but it's dangerous rhetoric that she's sharing there.
A Democratic socialist, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, is taking her national campaign of socialism. She's taking it from here in New York nationwide, but she appears to have her political colors mixed up.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be hopping on here, Senator Sanders' account, and we're here in Kansas City to rally for Brent Welder. We're going to flip this seat red in November.
So is she really the new face of the Democratic?
It inaugurated January 3rd, January 4th. We're signing health care. We're signing this. We're decarcerating our society. But really, it is that we have a duty to always fight and maintain the strength of our values.
Okay, so she would love to be inaugurated if she wins her congressional race here in New York, but they don't actually inaugurate Congress people, they swear them in.
That was Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, who was talking about the process, and she hopes to be inaugurated. Yes, the president's the only one out of 3 branches of government that gets inaugurated. The people of Congress get sworn into office. And then she went on to say that she was going to get inaugurated on the 3rd and then start signing bills on the 4th. And so people are being critical of her, saying she doesn't understand government. You don't get inaugurated and you don't sign bills. Only the president will sign the bills that you present to him.
A lot of these folks were in their political heyday in third way 90s politics. And they were campaigning, and they were really kind of connected most to an electorate when they were fighting for these seats, when they got these seats, when they were campaigning most, when we had more of an American middle class. And so I think that politically, this like upper middle class is probably more moderate. But that upper middle class doesn't exist anymore in America.
Well, that's the problem. Keep in mind, she in the past has said, look, the reason unemployment is so low is because people have 2 or 3 jobs and they're working 70 or 80 hours per week, which a number of fact finders found as a pants-on-fire lie. But when you look at what she just said, that the upper middle class is gone, look at this. In 1979, it was at 12.9%, if we could put up the graphic. And today, the middle class has grown, as you can see, more than double that number from that many years ago.
She also
Second, so Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, she has now donated her shoes to a museum. Tell us about this museum, and why do they want her shoes?
Well, Well, you know, when you look at the museum and you look at what it stands for and some of the artifacts that they've gathered, it seems to be appropriate when somebody accomplishes something great, something new. Obviously, she's one of the youngest people to be in Congress. You know, I'll say this. I think I'll change tones with this. I have to say, although I don't think that she understands hardly anything related to politics, she's a disgrace to a certain degree.
A lot of Democrats that think she's the future of their party. They love the message that she's talking about. A lot of young people as well. You hear free education, free health care. Who doesn't want that? The big question, as we all are talking about this morning, is where is that money going to come from? How are you going to pay for it? So Cabot Phillips, who is on our show all the time, and he goes out and he gets just an idea of how people are thinking in this country. He went to college campuses and asked them about these policies.
He went to the Bronx.
He went to her district. Actually, where she
Yeah.
is from and where she campaigned. And here's what they said about how we're going to pay for this.
Her platform includes free health care, college tuition, the minimum living wage, housing as a human right. Are those things that you think the government should be providing for people?
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
100%.
I feel like everyone should have like free education and health care.
How are we going to pay for those?
Oh, God. I mean,
Us.
us, I guess.
Who, in your mind, should pay for all of the free things?
All the free things? Well, some of it should come from taxes, but the government should pay for it.
But the government is funded by taxes.
Yeah.
Stone dead weight. AOC supposedly has an economics degree, which I imagine she got through the mail by clipping box tops off her Panda Puff cereal, because she certainly didn't have to sit through any classes, or some rational nuggets would have seeped into her brain through accidental osmosis. She misread an article from The Nation where a Michigan State economics professor documented $21 trillion in unsupported accounting adjustments from the Department of Defense. That means money was moving mysteriously in and out through an opaque budgetary system, and it's impossible to see what cancels each other out. Of course, Alexandria's reading comprehension is as solid as her basic math, so she took that to mean the Pentagon was hiding $21 trillion in a camouflage steamer trunk, and if she could find it and pry it open, it would almost single-handedly fund single-payer insurance. She tweeted, quote, 21 trillion of Pentagon financial transactions could not be traced, documented, or explained. 21T in Pentagon accounting errors. Medicare for all costs tilde 32T. That means 66% of Medicare for all could have been funded already by the Pentagon. And that's before our premiums. Oh, dear. That's not how it works. The total Pentagon budget for the 17-year period the study covers was only $9 trillion, and that's a lot of money. But there's not some magical stash you can trade for Band-Aids and aspirins in the cellar. My problem isn't with how Miss Ocasio Cortez looks or what she wears or how she talks. It's that she has been thrown so many softballs, leftist interviewers are getting group rate discounts on Tommy John surgery, and she never corrects her fundamental flaws or does basic research to fix her fuzzy math.
Congresswoman-elect Alexandria Ocasio Cortez being criticized by media fact-checkers across the board after claiming that there's an easy solution to funding universal health care insurance. Ocasio Cortez citing an article in The Nation, tweeting in part, 21 trillion in Pentagon spending accounting errors. Medicare for all cost about 32 trillion. That means 66% of Medicare for all could have been already funded already by the Pentagon. That's not what the article said. The Washington Post giving her tweet 4 Pinocchios, even despite her attempts to walk it back. They write, she cited the $21 trillion figure and said 66% of Medicare for all could have been funded already by the Pentagon. That's a direct comparison, but it's badly flawed. The same article she referenced on Twitter would have set her straight. The tweet is still up, probably causing some confusion. So, Harris, you made a great point earlier about the Congresswoman-elect and that maybe perhaps we're all on the Republican side giving her a little bit too much attention, or do you think that she just walks right into it with these tweets?
Well, I mean, you got to have your facts straight. So, you know, I mean, when you talk about the low-hanging fruit of do you know the 3 branches of government and that sort of thing, I mean, I guess it's funny, but it's not. And it shouldn't just be Republicans or people who are politically different than she is who are giving her grief over these items. Palestine is not a country. It's not a state. it should be within her own party, because she's being held up as somebody who could really be a big voice in the future. And if that's going to be your voice, if that's where you're going, the facts need to be right.
Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. And she had the stunning upset in New York. She beat out an establishment Democrat who was expected to be the next speaker in Congress. Well, here's some great news. Turns out that Republicans, conservatives, they're incredibly afraid of her.
I would love to have a real conversation with you about the issues. You've noted you think Republicans are afraid to debate you or talk to you or discuss the issues with you. Not only am I eager to discuss the issues with you, I'm willing to offer $10,000 to your campaign today.
Wow. All right. First, the challenge, and then the rejection. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro calling for a debate with Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. He wants to debate her. He wants to debate her on the issues. The New York congressional candidate taking issue with Ben Shapiro, tweeting out, "Just like catcalling, I don't owe a response to unsolicited requests from men with bad intentions." And also, like catcalling, for some reason, they feel entitled to one. Whoa, all right. We called Ocasio-Cortez and we asked her to come on the show. She has yet to respond. But you know who did respond? None other than Ben Shapiro for his first interview since that tweet. Ben, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Making
First of all,
I
just want to know quickly.
She's making news with you here. Go ahead.
Quick comment. First of all, how dare you catcall Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez by inviting her on your show? I mean, how dare you? That's sexism in action right there.
Democratic darling Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has no problem touting her free-for-all socialist agenda to liberal outlets. But when Ben Shapiro offered her $10,000 to debate, she accused him of catcalling and refused. So what's her excuse now that conservative women are challenging her to the debate? Let's ask them. We have Kaya Jones, sits on the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, along with Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens, and the conservative millennial CRTV host Allie Beth Stuckey. All of you have challenged her to a debate. I've been reading all of your tweets. She has not, I don't think, responded. I want to go around the square here and ask. And Candace, I'll start with you, because you were offering her $100,000 to a charity of her choice, thanks to people who have contributed to Turning Point USA. Did you ever hear from her?
I did not hear from her, and this is not the first time that she's declined to debate me. She ignored a TV station which came forward and said that they would actually sponsor a conversation between the two of us. And I think that this indicates that she doesn't understand the platform upon which she stands for. It would make sense for her to want to come forward and defend her ideas, but of course, her ideas do not make sense beyond on the paper, the utopian concepts that she preaches. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, she put herself in this ring. I thought maybe she's young, maybe she's not ready for a debate, but she did run for office and she was elected, so we need to hear her thoughts. Kaya, I know you asked her to debate her. You put on Twitter, "Can I please debate you?" Did you ever hear from her?
Not a penny, not a word. And you know, I want her to debate at Politicon. You know, Politicon is going to be an open platform, very non-biased. So I was hoping that she would have responded, but nothing.
Why do you think she didn't?
I think she's scared to debate. I think that's the thing. The socialistic platform of the regime that she's thinking to bring into the American platform is just, I don't think she knows what she really is going to debate about. I think she's confused even. You know, some of the things she has said, she's not even sure about Nancy Pelosi, which is part of her team.
Allie Beth, you did that mock video over and you were hit for it. Why don't you think she's responding to you?
Exactly. Well, first of all, let's make something clear. She didn't deny Ben Shapiro's offer to debate based on sexism. She did it based on fear. And the ironic thing is that when I released that satirical interview just a couple weeks ago, she responded by accusing Republicans of being scared of her. Well, considering that she has ignored or denied all requests from conservative men and women to have a conversation about the pros and cons of socialism, I would say that it's not us that is scared of her. It is she that is scared of us.
This is what the democracy is all about. Seeing someone like that at her age going out and winning a race, talking about issues that she's passionate about. I think we can all agree on that. But you would think that being out there in the public eye, she would want to have debate. She would want to show people more about those ideas. Ben Shapiro is someone that has wanted to go up one-on-one against her, and so he's asked her a number of times. She has responded by saying this. She said, "Just like catcalling, I don't owe a response to unsolicited requests from men with bad intentions." And also like catcalling. For some reason, they feel entitled to one. So she's saying there she's not responding, but that's a pretty clear response right there. He's catcalling her by saying he wants to go one-on-one on the issues.
But see, that's what they do. On the Democrat side, you have a woman. The first thing they want to say is they want to cry like somebody is catcalling or somebody is abusing them or bashing them in some type of way. Right. Listen, we want to know what you know. We want to know how you're going to help this country. And I think there's nothing wrong with a debate, a good debate on the issue so that we can see what side of the aisle you're really on. Because it sounds like that you want us to all be in poverty and be poor. And I don't think we want to vote for you.
That's right.
I don't think nobody should vote for you, tell you the truth.
And instead of bringing socialism here to this country, how about go over to a socialist country and see how that's working out for you?
Yeah, not so good.
Freedoms. So I would like to debate her. I'd like to hear what her 8-point plan is.
What gives you more freedom other than economic opportunity? I mean, you look at all the economic data, the real economic data that she doesn't deal with, the jobs numbers. You look at consumer confidence. You look at investment, small business investment. All of the indicators indicate that we are in an economic boom now, specifically because we have less government and a stronger private sector.
Candidacy for New York's 14th congressional district and go with incumbent Joe Crowley on a different ticket in the general election come November. Senator Lieberman joins me now. And by the way, we did call and reach out to Ocasio Cortez, and so far, no reply.
Circumstances. So it's a system that is just more beneficial, and that is why almost every developed nation in the world has it.
Exactly, yeah. And I wanted to just quickly touch on what you mentioned briefly, which I think you don't hear a lot of politicians talk about this, and so I'm happy you mentioned it. When it comes to the Department of Defense and our defense budget in general, you're right, no one ever has a conversation about, oh, how do we pay for it? And it's because there's so much fear-mongering about, oh, the others, we need to protect the country. No, the majority of that money goes to private contractors when it doesn't need to, and there's a lot of waste in the military. But just to give you some statistics, some numbers, the Trump administration has asked Congress to approve $716 billion for 2019.
If people pay their fair share, if corporations and the ultra wealthy, if we reverse the tax bill but raised our corporate tax rate to 28%, if we do those two things and also close some of those loopholes, that's $2 trillion right there. If we implement a carbon tax, that's an additional amount of a large amount of revenue that we can have. And then the last key, which is extremely, extremely important, is reprioritization. Just last year, we gave the military a $700 billion budget increase, which they didn't even ask for.
Wow. Well, that's the new socialist darling from the Bronx. Let's bring in Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent and former NYPD officer, host of the Dan Bongino Show podcast. Dan, she appears to be speaking for a lot of Democrats, even though she calls herself a Democratic socialist. Her big ideas are gutting the military and taxing the rich with different priorities. What do you think?
Yeah, Pete, she's also speaking for people who don't read books. Because almost nothing she said in that clip was factually correct. Ronald Reagan actually raised a couple of taxes. When he raised those taxes, tax revenue went down. When he cut income taxes significantly, tax revenue went up. So what she's talking about raising taxes, she has very little evidence it's going to produce more revenue. Number two, she's confusing the entire military budget, Pete, with the increase. The entire military budget is around $700 billion. They didn't ask for a $700 billion increase. She's running for Congress. You understand this, right? Not only, by the way, the lies go on, or the mistruths, or whatever the focus group tested word is. Then she says, and they didn't even ask for it. General Mattis actually lobbied for the increase. Does she not know that either? Did she just make up this whole thing? I mean, at what point is she going to go on the air and say something that is factually correct? This is now, what, 100 interviews where she's flubbed something big? This is embarrassing
Dan,
now.
What do you think?
Well, think about what we just heard, Lou. We got GDP numbers this morning, 4.1% for the second quarter, which if we keep that up, we're on track to have 3% annualized growth, something we've not had in more than a decade, something that President Obama said was impossible to have happen again. And yet you listen to this faction of the Democratic Party, the ascendant faction, I would note, And not only do they want to reverse everything that has got us to that position, make individuals pay higher taxes, saddle corporate America with one of the worst tax rates in the world again, but in addition, from that clip you played, she also wants a new tax, a carbon tax on top of it. And I don't know if these people are living in another planet where things aren't getting better, or if they honestly just don't care about the fate of the average American.
This was the third straight weekend of protests like this, both in Paris and across the rest of France. And what started as a protest against fuel tax 3 weeks ago has morphed into a greater anger at President Macron's policies and his government in general. 3 people have now been killed since the protest started. And over the week,
French President Macron, meanwhile, calling an emergency government meeting in Paris today as furious protesters get more violent for the third straight week.
More than 400 arrested for torching cars, vandalizing landmarks, and attacking police, stealing their assault weapons as they protest Macron, calling on him to step down over rising taxes.
French authorities are still removing burned-out cars, cleaning up broken glass, and scouring graffiti from buildings on the famed Champs-Élysées Avenue and other Paris landmarks that were trashed by protesters over the weekend. You mentioned these were the worst riots in a decade, but French police say some of the violent tactics were unprecedented. Watch.
Hammers, steel beads, gardening tools, hose projected towards officers, big bolts were thrown on them. We have pictures of that. Aerosol cans linked to gas bombs or firecrackers thrown on our officers.
Yeah, dozens were hurt, and now reports that an elderly woman has died from her injuries. In all, some 250 fires were reported, and 300-plus people remain behind bars. The violence included groups on the far left and far right, but police also believe much of the violence aimed at police was the work of professional troublemakers. The yellow jackets, worn by a great number of protesters, are the fluorescent vests that French motorists are required to have in their cars for emergencies. But the jackets have come to symbolize far more than just a push against rising fuel taxes. They are now emblematic of violent protesters using the spotlight to lash out at the policies of French President Emmanuel Macron, saying he doesn't care about ordinary people.
Marie, what do you think?
I don't see anyone in the Democratic Party holding her up as the future of the party, and I think
Bernie Sanders loves her. She was a protege.
Who's the head of the DNC?
Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat.
Who's the head of the DNC? Who heads the DNC?
Tom Perez.
Who said that Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is the future of the Democratic Party.
I also don't think Tom Perez has a lot of support among many Democrats in Congress or on the ground. But I will say, it's not breaking news.
You've thrown everyone under the bus.
Well, I just don't think
Who do you like if you don't like Tom Perez and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Those are my only 2 options as a Democrat.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat. I would say it's not breaking news that a freshman member of Congress,
might be your nominee for president.
That a freshman member of Congress says something without any real experience yet, says something that's factually inaccurate.
You don't
I don't think
you
that's
don't need
news.
experience to know what the 3 branches of government
I'm not
are.
defending
You
it,
don't
Harris.
need
Okay,
experience
Harris.
to read an article and add the numbers.
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying this isn't like the downfall of the Democratic Party because she had a stupid tweet.
Over the last year or so. But the young woman here in New York City who won that district contest a couple of days ago from Joe Crowley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was on the Late Show last night and talked about how nobody in America should be too poor to live. And if you don't have anything, that is a very potent message.
Correct. Look, it's very easy to be generous with other people's money, but be careful trying to use rightful means of theft to try to redistribute what you feel is best for society. Instead, and try to say we should have a bunch of free stuff like the failed Marxist experiments over the last 100 years. We have over 100 different experiments of socialism and Marxism ruining cultures and civilizations. Let's talk about how we can make the pie bigger, create more wealth and more opportunity for more people, and be brutally honest about the reality of life, not trying to create a utopia on the horizon that will never happen.
it's the downfall of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party because it is built on a foundation of yogurt. And it is incredibly problematic because she doesn't have a working knowledge of basic economics. Socialism is an economic system. You have to have an economic argument in order to A, sell it, and B, make it work. She cannot do either because she doesn't understand how the world works, how people make money, how money is created, and the creation of money is actually a positive sum effort where more people thrive when more people make money.
I think we should just stop the segment right there.